This episode discusses instances of domestic violence. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please visit thehotline.org. So, one of the really hot topics lately has been It Ends With Us. It was originally a book. I read it 2 years ago, and they recently adapted it into a movie. And Blake Lively has been getting a lot of heat because she's been marketing this movie as a rom-com when really it's about domestic violence. And I went to go see it with my friends recently, and my friend had no idea it was even about domestic violence. She thought it
Really?
was a rom-com. Yeah. And the other criticism that the movie is getting too is that there's a lot of themes missing from the movie that were present in the book that make you kind of understand the character of Lily more and the character of Ryle. And it's almost like how the book presents it. You understand how Lily continues to stay with this person, and you almost kind of feel bad for Ryle, who's the abuser. He has a lot of childhood trauma. In the book, it's almost like she uses that as an excuse for his behavior, kind of how, like, if someone's abusive when they're drinking,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
yep, it's like, oh well, they're drunk, they're drinking, like of course they have so many demons, or if they went through something traumatic, it's so easy to excuse the behavior. There's something that happens in the book that they completely leave out of the movie, where she has these journal entries that she writes. Eventually her husband, her abusive husband, finds the journals and reads them and figures out all of these things about her past and this guy she dated from high school, like they're all connected to her present, and it sets him off. And it reminds me of when I was with my first boyfriend, and I had journals that I would write about everything in my life. And I had told them about the journals, and he asked to read them. And I said, I don't feel comfortable with that. Like, these are my private thoughts. And one day, while I was sleeping and he was staying over, he went through all of my stuff to find the journals, and he read the journals, and he got so upset. I woke up in the morning and he was gone, and I was like, what the heck happened? And he made a comment about something I had wrote in the journal, and that's how I knew he read the journals. And
What did you write in the journals that could have made him so mad?
uh, so I wrote about the first time we slept together and how short and bad it was. And he didn't like that very much. But instead of me like recognizing, hey, this person violated my privacy, did something I asked them not to do, that's on him, I instead found myself making excuses for him. Like, well, of course he was upset because I wrote
Mhm.
those horrible things about him. I would be upset. Like, I shouldn't have told him about the
I
journals,
shouldn't have wrote it.
shouldn't have
Like,
written it.
right. It's not your fault, but you, in that instance, blame yourself, of course,
Exactly. And
because
I
of what happened.
exactly. And that's what abusers do too. They flip the script to make it seem like you're the one at fault.
How long were you with him?
We were together for like 5 years on and off.
5 years? Wait, when?
Yeah.
So you wrote about that in your journal about the
Hmm.
first time you had sex, but when in your relationship was it? Did he read it?
Not long after.
Re-
It was like,
And you were still together for that
uh
long?
huh. Well,
Wow.
and this is the thing, it's a bunch of little things that you're able to excuse, right? When you care
Hmm.
about someone. I excused it because it was my fault. I even went back in the journal and got rid of those things I wrote, like crossed them out, ripped the pages out
Hmm.
that I could rip out because I felt so terrible about it.
Hmm.
But that was just my experience in the moment. And none of the things I said were incorrect.
Right. You were just journaling.
I was just
And
writing about the bad sex I had, you know? That should have been my first red flag. Just kind of like how in the book and the movie, one of the first interactions with Lily and Ryle, she's sitting on a rooftop and he comes onto the roof and starts hitting a chair and throwing a chair around. And it's like, that's a red flag. Why are
Mhm.
you even interested in this guy that your first interaction with him is him being violent with like an
Right.
object?
It's just like reminded me of my ex. Like she would like throw things like
Like
softball
keys?
bat, keys, like stuff like that. Like horrible like anger problem. I went to watch her play one time, like it was like a college alumni game or something.
For softball?
Yeah, and she like they had to wear helmets because it was like fast pitch.
Okay.
Like, now in Old Lady League, we don't wear helmets, even though we
What
probably
did you
should.
call it?
Old Lady League.
That's hilarious.
So she was wearing a helmet, and I think she like struck out or something, and she like threw the helmet. And I'm like, and that was like kind of early on. And I was like, all right, I get it. Like sometimes I get really mad, but I don't do things like that.
Right.
But like players of mine have, like, who have anger problems, but I'm like, why is she doing it? But like these were all red flags, and I was like,
Right.
oh great, let me keep going.
How long did you guys date?
I can't even remember, honestly. I think it was like 2.5 years.
Damn, that's a long time.
2.5. Was it longer? I can't remember. I really blocked that out.
That's trauma
like
blocking.
I really did.
Yeah. It always starts as like emotional red flags, right?
Mhm.
And the first physical red flag from my boyfriend, I remember one day he was like hitting me and I put my hand up to block him and he jammed my finger and I had to be in a splint for 2 weeks because my finger was so messed up. I couldn't play flute. I had to be out of cheerleading for 2 weeks.
Was this in high school?
This was in high
Okay.
school, yeah, my senior year. And when it happened, he blamed me. He said, well, that's your fault for blocking me. And because I was telling him to stop hitting me and he kept hitting me. And he was making out like it was playful, but it wasn't playful. Like it was painful.
Did people ask when you had the splint on, like, what happened and like what did you, obviously you probably didn't tell them, right?
I just said I jammed my finger.
That's like something you can't like admit. You were so young, and it's like you don't know what to think or what people are going to think.
And also, when you're that young, you don't understand abuse in
Mhm.
relationships. My friend was in a very abusive relationship as well. And this
Around
was
the same time,
around
like
the
high
same
school.
time. Yep.
Mhm.
And she started dating her boyfriend right before I started dating this guy. And I like didn't know what to do or how to help her. I kept saying like, I don't understand why you just don't break up with him. And that's what it is like when you're not in that situation, the reaction is 90% of the time, just break up with him.
Mm.
And it's just not that easy or not that simple.
The one time my ex and I, we were in AC with like a bunch of friends. She had to have a gambling problem that I like really didn't know about. So she was gambling, and like I know we were fighting because I was like, come on, we have to go. Like it was like late and like we were all tired. And she's like, come on, no, like one more time, like kept, So finally we left and we went into the room, and I was tired, and I think I like laid down and went to sleep. And she was so mad because she wanted to go back to gamble and like go out and drink or whatever. And she like went on top of me and like put her phone in my ear, like on like as loud as it goes, with screamo music to wake me up. And then I was pissed and I was like, are you kidding? But we ended up going in the hallway, like screaming. I think I was like, I'm leaving. Like I'll go stay with whoever, like one of my friends. And my friends all came out in the hallway. They're like, what is going on? And she like put her hands on me. And then like I like lost my shit. I was like, are you kidding? Like I was like screaming, and my friend saw it. We were definitely all drinking that night or that day, whatever. So that didn't help. So like it was always that excuse like, oh, we were drunk, so that's why it happened. And, we'll be fine. And there were so many instances like that. And I really did block out most of them. And like even that instance, like I can't remember exactly what happened, but I know she definitely like put her hands on me. She did like multiple times, and it was mostly when she was drunk.
And it always happens in Atlantic City because I also had an incident happen in Atlantic City. He kept feeding me alcohol and I didn't want to drink anymore. And he kept giving me alcohol. And I got so drunk. I could barely handle myself. And things happened. And I found out that things happened because I was incoherent. The next day, my revenge was projectile vomiting all over his car. That was beautiful.
Oh
I love that for myself. Literally, we were like recapping the events of like what happened the night before, and something came up, and I was like, what the fuck? It scared me, and I was like, there's no way this person would do something so terrible. I projectile vomited as a response, and that was beautiful. Revenge in little
karma,
forms. Yeah,
revenge.
karma is my boyfriend.
Instant karma.
Instant. And he loved his car. That's the other thing. He was like obsessed with that car. So it felt so good to project out. Like at the
That's
time I
funny.
felt bad because I was like, oh, I probably like, I'm definitely misinterpreting things, or like maybe I wasn't really that drunk. Again, making excuses. Maybe I wasn't really that drunk. Maybe he didn't understand. Like we've been together at this point. We're together for 5 years.
Making all of these excuses.
Yeah, exactly. And then it happened again when I was sober, and I was like, oh, you're really a terrible person. And that was the turning point for me, is like, A lot of the other stuff I could excuse. There's a breaking point for everyone. So,
Yeah.
and one of the times he was abusive was a huge breaking point and turning point for me, because I was like, I can't live like this forever. I'm not happy. And also, it helped that I was in law school at the time. So I physically was not near him, which helped so significantly. And I had a really good roommate who was like my best friend who helped me get through it. So having a strong support system is really important
Yeah.
when you're leaving like a situation like that. But
It took something like, well, like a situation like that for me to like leave too. Like it was in my apartment. We were fighting over something, can't remember. And she threw her car keys, which had like a bunch of shit. It wasn't just like one key. It like whipped it at me so like, and we were close. Like we were not far in distance. Like we were in the kitchen, which was tiny. She whipped it at me. It might have skimmed my face, but like I was able to like dodge it. Like I dodged a bullet when I left her. But I like dodged the keys, but like she threw it so hard. And that was my last, like I was so furious. I wanted to go and get the keys and whip it at her, but I didn't. I was like, I cannot stoop down to that level because like I'm not like a violent person, but I was so mad and I took my keys and my wallet and stuff and I just went in my car and drove away because I'm like, if I'm there, I'm going to try to attack her or do something that I normally wouldn't do. So I like went in my car and like drove around and I think I called like a friend and I was like telling them like what happened and I was like, I need to calm down because I think I like pulled over on a street. Cause I'm like, I can't drive like this. But I like was done, like completely done. And I think I broke up with her that day.
that's good
And that
though.
was it.
Yeah. There's always like that one thing that you
Yeah.
can never come back from.
Yeah. It was just like that was like the cherry on top. Like,
Right.
I mean, I think I was done before that.
Right.
Like I knew I was done, but again, it's hard to leave.
It's hard to
Yeah.
leave because it's oftentimes it is harder to leave than it is to stay. And like things are so comfortable. And these are instances that we're talking about of like physical abuse too. But along with the physical abuse is emotional abuse. And that is even harder to leave.
Right.
Because emotional abuse is so much harder to pinpoint, but it's just as damaging. I mean, the emotional abuse I experienced in my last relationship is so much more traumatic than the physical abuse I experienced in my first relationship. And that's just my experience. Not to say that that's going to be everyone's experience who's been through both. Like for me personally, like I am truly traumatized and it's so hard to leave because it's just so you're so comfortable and it's at one point you saw the good in someone.
Yeah, it's like when it was good, it was really good. So it's like you hang on to that.
Right.
But also like I know for me like growing up and like seeing the relationships that I did, which were all not great, it's like, oh, I'm used to that. Like that's normal. Like, you know, like you kind of like make excuses and then you just stay.
Exactly.
Which is what happened with me. You know that there's red flags, but you don't really like see them or talk about them. And you're like, no, like, you know, we were drunk or she was drunk. Like,
Right.
but that's not acceptable, drunk or not drunk.
No.
And not it wasn't always drunk all the time.
Right. And I think it's so
happened.
easy, like when you factor in alcohol too, because I mean, we've done stupid shit when we're drunk.
All the time.
You know, like we do social stuff that like we would never do if we were sober.
Right.
So I think putting that into context and someone else is doing something harmful when they're drunk, it's so easy to be like, well, I've done stupid shit when I'm drunk, but like it's really not an excuse, especially if it happens more than once. It's a behavior, like it's a pattern at this point.
Exactly.
Substance abuse as a whole, and a lot of times that goes hand in hand. Like people who are abusive also have like some sort of addiction, like gambling addiction, like
I
with
think
your
she
ex.
like was addicted to pot too.
Yeah.
But like I was totally against it like back then at the time. But she definitely was doing it when we were together and I just didn't know. Like she would hide it from me because she knew I was like not about it. And there was like one time we went out and she was meeting my friends for the first time. And she disappeared for over an hour. And my friends are like, where is she? And I'm like, I don't know. And then finally she came back and she's like, she looked messed up. Like her eyes were like glassed over, whatever. God only knows. I'm assuming it's pot. It could have been something else. But she's like, oh, I was in the bathroom. I don't know. It was just so many red flags and she was sketchy, but I think she was doing that as
Probably.
well. And gambling
And
and
gambling.
whatever. Like, who knows? I mean, we didn't live together. Like, she stayed over my apartment or like my house. Like, when I lived, at like, with my roommate, we rented a house. But other than that, she was at her parents'.
Right. Well,
So
and you
who
don't really
knows?
see someone's true colors. Like moving in together is such a game changer too, to see all
Mm.
those behaviors. Like with my ex, when we first started dating, she had, some people say like you can't be addicted to pot because pot doesn't have like addictive
No, but
qualities,
mine was addicted.
but you can have like an addiction to like like you can
Do it like
to doing
to
it,
doing
right?
it. Yeah,
Like
like,
pot in and of itself isn't like food in and of itself isn't addicting, but you can be
but
addicted to
right,
food.
exactly.
And so when my ex and I started dating, she was always under the influence. I realized about 2 months into the relationship that every single time we hung out, she was either high or drunk. And I was like, holy shit, this is a problem. And so we had a conversation about it because I was like, listen, like, it makes me feel really uncomfortable that literally every single time we've interacted, our whole entire time we've been dating, our whole relationship for the last 2 months,
Red flag.
red flag, call me a collector. You know, she was under the influence. And so we talked about it, and she like took a step back from smoking, but then her drinking
Mm-hmm.
ramped up, and then
Yep.
the drinking became problematic, and
Mm-hmm.
then she was back to the smoking, and then it's just she hopped from one addiction to the other, and then eventually it turned into gambling, and then it turned into her having affairs. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
like always
I
one thing.
literally, I'm pretty sure you're describing my ex.
I mean, basically they should
Because our
date.
ex, yeah, are you guys available?
I mean, mine
Well, mine's
isn't.
not either, but that does that matter? They'll cheat.
Yeah, they're both
They'll
cheaters, so
cheat.
they could
Doesn't
cheat with each
matter.
other. So, you know, they can traumatize each other a little bit, you know, give them a taste of their own medicine.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many like red flags,
Mm.
and like, you know, the substance abuse comes along a lot of times with it. Not always, right? Because
Mm.
you don't have to abuse it to be abusive.
Right.
But
But it's other things like
right.
total like alcoholic too. And we rented a shore house like with a bunch of people. 2 summers, I think it was 2 or 3. I don't know. And all they do is drink, like
Mm-hmm.
everyone. And I started drinking more because like we're just bored all day. What are we doing? No one went to the beach. No one did like activities. It was all just like, oh, we're drinking and then we're gonna go out later.
Mm-hmm.
So I started drinking more too. And like I hated myself when I was doing all of that. And I definitely gained weight. And then she would like make comments like, oh, like you need to go to the gym. I was like so upset because I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I don't know. Like she would just call me fat all the
It's
time.
abusive.
Yeah.
It's
And
literally abuse.
I remember we were at the Monmouth racetrack and her whole family was there and her mom drove us, I think. And I was like to her mom, I'm like, do you know your daughter called me fat and told me I need to go to the gym like at the racetrack? And she's like, what? She would never say that. And I'm like, no, she literally just said that. And my roommate was with us and she's like, oh my God, this is so like, this is awkward. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what to do. And we were just fighting the whole ride home
Well, that's, and that's
with her
like,
mom in the car.
that's crazy. Like, and they're
Yeah.
so abusive, and that's what it is when they can't physically abuse you in public, they'll emotionally abuse
Mm-hmm.
you. Or when you think of abuse, you think oftentimes of physical abuse, right? But like we've said, mental abuse is just as bad and as strong, and that's what they'll use instead
Mm-hmm.
in public. Like you could get
Yeah.
away with it a lot easier than if like she put her hands on you.
Exactly.
But it's crazy that you said the mom not believing that you
Mm-hmm.
said that, because so often it's like that, and that's why people are afraid to come forward and say anything, because people don't believe you, especially
Right.
it's like, so okay, in this movie, right, or in the book, the sister of the abuser is best friends with the victim, right? So Lily, I can't remember the sister's name, but Lily's best friends with her, and so she says, hey, like your brother has been abusing me.
Mm.
And the sister shockingly believes her. I guess not so shockingly, but
Mm.
oftentimes in real life that doesn't happen.
Right.
But she believes her, and she says to her, him being my brother, I'd want you to work it out, but like as my best friend, like you have to leave. But also she says that she's known him her whole life and she never suspected he would be capable of something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which is why oftentimes when you tell people who are close to the abuser that they're doing this thing, they just don't believe you.
Right.
And that's the case like with my first boyfriend. Like people didn't believe me when I told them. And even with my ex, like when I told people what actually happened behind closed doors, they were shocked, like
Mm-hmm.
absolutely done. And they were like, I could never. I told my two friends what was going on, and they were like, I never would have thought. I never would have thought any
Right.
of that stuff would have gone on,
Right.
or that she was like that. She was so good at putting on a front and fooling people. And that's the thing is like, she has everyone in her life fooled. She is lying to everyone in her
Mm-hmm.
life, her parents, her friends, her family, her current girlfriend, if they're still together. Like their
Mm-hmm.
entire relationship was started on a foundation of lies.
Right.
And that's how abusers are. They just lie and they fool all these people. But then when you're in a relationship with them and you're like the closest person to them and they're treating you like crap and you see through all their stuff, like that's when they leave, right? Is when they can't get away with their BS anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad because you think you know someone. And even though you see the red flags, it's so hard because you see the good in them too.
Mm-hmm. And it's in your case, it was even crazier because you guys owned a house together.
Yeah.
And like that's like a whole other level of like commitment. My ex and the abusive ex, we looked at apartments together because she's like, oh, your apartment's too small. But like I didn't even want her moving in anyway. But like she would stay over here and there and be like, oh, it's too small. So she's like, oh, we should look at apartments that are like 2 bedroom, whatever. So we looked at a bunch. Like there was ones that were like amazing and like I mean expensive, but like we could have afforded it. And the second we like walked into the apartment, I'm like, wow, I love it, but I absolutely will never move in with you. Like you just got that gut feeling
Mm-hmm.
that it wasn't right. Like, and that's when I knew I had to leave her.
Yeah.
Like that's when I knew in my head, but I was like, how can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then it took something like significant, like, you know, huge fight, argument, whatever, throwing stuff for it, like me to be like, that's it. Like
Right.
I'm done. But like I knew I was done a while.
Yeah.
Like,
I wish I had
mm,
listened to my gut when I bought the house with my ex because, and I remember the realtor saying to me, like, why aren't you excited? Because I wasn't excited to buy the house. And I thought it was anxiety about making like this huge life changing
mm,
decision. But I later realized, and I think I kind of knew at the time that it was a gut feeling that it was the
it was the
wrong choice.
person.
Yeah, it was the person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that came to light. And, living together and owning a house together and having these responsibilities really showed me who she was. And I wanted out so bad. And it's so hard when you have a house together. And it's hard too when it's someone so manipulative because, like, I would try and end things and she would beg me and she would threaten to do something to herself if I
Mm-hmm.
left her. And it's like you stay because you don't want that guilt of, like, well, what if she actually tries to do that? And then that's
Mm-hmm.
on me. And it's not on you, but like,
But like in your head, it is like
yeah, that's how
deep
abusers
down.
work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like stuff like that would happen where it was just so mentally, like it was gaslighting and like
Mm-hmm.
just all these mental gymnastics and games. And then being with someone like that too, it changes you as a person. And I started to become this person that I didn't like because I just felt trapped and stuck in a situation that I was so unhappy in. And I just didn't know how to leave, especially owning a house together.
Right.
If she wasn't agreeing to leave, which she refused to do.
It's just like a lot more involved.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's easier to leave if you don't have that stuff.
Right.
Or if you do. Like it does make it like
More
harder,
complicated.
like,
Yeah.
overall. But
Yeah. I mean, I still had
it's
a hard time
yeah.
leaving my ex-boyfriend and we didn't
You
live
didn't live
together.
together and
I
all of
mean, and
that.
we
Yeah.
weren't even in the same state for like half of our relationship because I was
You
away
were
at
in school.
college
Yeah.
and I still stayed with him. So it's just, I mean, yeah, physically being forced to live in the same spot makes it a different kind of difficult, but it's just so hard to leave. And I think the moral of the story is look for the red flags early on and listen to them
Yeah.
because I
Listen
feel
to your
like
gut.
listen to your
Yeah.
gut and listen to the red flags, which we've learned this already in a previous episode. But it's like a general theme because,
Mm.
like, I mean, look at the early red flags like we just
Mm-hmm.
mentioned.
There were so
So,
many more
so
that
many
that
more.
we could have talked about.
Oh yeah.
But
I remember this one time I was sick. This is like a side quest, but this one time I was sick and my ex-boyfriend brought me Panera and I asked him to like bring it into the house because I was so sick I couldn't get out of bed. He like refused to come in and then I'll never forget. This is so early on too. He drove away and he was like, "Fine, I tried to do something nice for you," and like blah blah blah. And I'm like, "All you have to do is walk in the house. Like it's
oh my
not
god,
a big
like yeah.
deal."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why he was refusing to do it. And so in my very very sick state, I dragged my ass out of bed, got in my car, and followed him back to his house and ended up staying there, which like I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be in my
Mm-hmm.
own bed, but like it's just like that abuse. Like you feel so, I felt so bad
Mm-hmm.
because he was like, I tried to do something nice for you. And I wasn't trying to be like an asshole by not getting out of bed. I was just sick. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want to get
You
out of
didn't feel
bed,
good.
you
Yeah.
know? Like, and I guess it's like, even now I'm still like, well, it's my fault. I should have just sucked it up and got out of bed. He did such a nice gesture for me. But like his reaction to me not getting out of bed was so extreme. But I still find myself like blaming myself for his reaction because I didn't get out of bed.
Right.
And it's over 10 years later.
Right. Yeah. The first time I met my ex in person, because we talked for a long time, and she would not let me come to her shore house because she did not want her brother and friends meeting me. And I'm like, what? I'm like, is she like embarrassed of me? Like, is there something that I don't know? Was she with somebody else? Was she just screwing around with anyone and like doesn't want anyone to know how many people she's screwing around with? Like, maybe I was just supposed to be one of those, but it
Right.
ended up, well, unfortunately, a relationship. But yeah, it was very like that was a huge red flag for me. Not that I wanted to meet her family or anything like that, but like it was just weird how she like went about it because I was like, oh, I can meet you at your house, the shore house, and like pick you up, or like we could go somewhere. Like it wasn't even like let's hang out there. Who the hell wants to? Yeah, but I should have known.
I mean, you look back and it's so easy to look back at all the red flags that you
Mm.
missed. Like even the good times with my ex, I look back at them and it's immediately followed by like a red flag that I
Mm.
should have seen. I tried to focus on the good moment in the
Mm.
relationship that outweighed the bad. And now all of my memories of her are completely tainted. Like I
Mm.
could not think of one single good memory of her.
Neither can I
It's
for
crazy.
your for your ex.
For my
I
ex.
can't think of any.
Even in your interactions with her?
No, wouldn't commit.
Typical.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like all
Yeah,
of that,
I know.
just
And that's the
odd.
other thing is certain aspects, right? Their true colors come out. Like with my ex, you started to see her true colors
Mhm.
like
She was like personable to like
mhm
have a short convo with, but you don't know anything
mhm
at all. Like, and most of the conversations weren't deep or anything. It was just
right.
like, wow, she's like a decent person,
Right.
but you don't know.
She seemed so cool and
Mm-hmm.
so nice and we were all
Mm-hmm.
bamboozled a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing too is it's shocking when you know someone who's in a situation and you find out who someone truly is and it's like and that's why it's so hard to like as a victim to come out because not only do you have to admit that you've been in this situation and it's almost like shameful too, like it's
Mm-hmm.
embarrassing, like how could I stay with this person, but now you have to tell all these people that this person who you were with who they thought was this like really great person isn't that person,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a fear of like them not believing you, but it's also like
Like, am I crazy?
right.
Like, blaming yourself over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I know a lot of the times my friends saw stuff, not everything, but they saw stuff. So like, they'd be like, you know, they'd be like, oh, really? Or like, that happened? Or like, yeah, we saw something, but like, never fully like what happened.
Yeah.
And like, that person was like a very like sociable person, which everyone liked them and wouldn't believe that that person would do that, like
Right.
just like yours,
That's
like
exactly how it is.
because when you don't know them, like really know them,
Mm-hmm.
they're just like, oh, they're a cool person to hang out with, and you know, really nice and all good qualities, but they don't know anything
No.
about them.
And I think for me too, a lot of our relationship was during COVID. For 2 years, we weren't really around other people.
Mm-hmm.
So for 2 years, she didn't have to put this facade on in front of other people. And like, but then when we were around people, it's like instant. I remember her friends came to visit once, and my ex was a completely different person around this group of
Mm-hmm.
people. And she treated me so terribly. I mean, I just felt like such an outcast around those people. And she said it was my fault. Like, you're not trying to be friends with my friends. And I did try, but they were so cliquey, and she
Mm-hmm.
didn't do anything to welcome me into the group. Like, I remember when they came to visit, it was also my mom's birthday. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my mom. You do your thing with your friends. She then begged me to go out to the bar with her and her friends. And I did. And I sat at the end of the bar, and my ex didn't talk to me the entire time I was there. and not a single one of her friends made an effort to include me, and I tried to include myself, but it just wasn't happening. But then they included the bartender in all these pictures they were taking, like they were
And not
taking,
even
and
you.
not me. And I
Damn,
was
I
like,
included you more the day I met you at the Golden Lion in the combo.
yeah,
and
well, that's where it was. It was at the Lion.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, jeez.
So they were like included the bartender, and it was just like, and she just became, with each group of friends, I noticed she was just such a different person around
Who she was with.
and it was so different, like speaking differently, and these are all red flags.
They're all red flags.
Yeah. So anyway, these are all,
They're
red,
all
flags
red
to look
flags.
out for that we completely ignored.
Yes.
Or like sometimes you don't even realize something's a red flag, or you excuse it. So I am glad that the book and the movie are out because it does tell an important story. I do think that the movie misses a lot that the book covers that's so important.
Do you recommend reading the book first or seeing the movie first if somebody hasn't seen either?
I
like
would
me?
definitely read the book first. It's an easy read. My friend read it in like a week recently.
Really?
Yeah, she saw everything about it online and she was like, I don't know what this book is about, but I'm going to read it.
And then see the movie.
And then see the movie
Okay.
because the movie does do certain things that I like about how like making it look like an accident, but it misses important plot points.
I do want to read it.
It's the
Yeah.
book is so, and it talks about like the backstory with like the one guy, which is so important in her present relationship, which also like happens too in, you know, one of the things my ex got really upset about and like freaked out on me once is like I made an appointment with a vet for my dog. I had previously seen when I had a pet with my ex-boyfriend, and he was still on the account as the primary like person. And so the reminder for the appointment went to his phone. And so we're 4 years into our relationship by this point, and I'm getting a text message from my ex-boyfriend, and I had told my like now ex, at the time girlfriend, about it, and she freaked out. She was like, why is he texting you? And I was like,
Right.
because he's texting me the appointment information for the vet, and like it's not that deep. I just like I don't even know if I responded. And she was like, I don't understand why he's texting you, like you don't need the reminder, you just made the appointment. She like freaked out about it. I was like, why are you getting so upset? She got so upset. And she was like, I just know how triggering it is for you when he reaches out to you and how like upsetting it is to hear from him. And I was like, but I'm not even upset about it. And I'm telling you, I'm not upset about it. And it's once again it's not gaslighting. It's like almost like projecting. Like instead of her just admitting like it upset her that I heard from my ex-boyfriend that I hadn't spoken to in years, she was like, I'm upset for you. And it's like, no,
But it's
you're
like, no, you're really upset yourself.
you're upset
like,
yourself. And that's
yeah.
also a red flag. Like
like,
I don't talk to
very
him.
like jealous and controlling. Mine was the same. Like if somebody like looked at me, they were into me. She would tell them off.
Oh, really?
Oh, she would, depending on what the situation. Yeah, she would say something or whatever.
Meanwhile, I was crazy when I saw my ex-girlfriend shoving her hand in someone else's back pocket at the bar and trying to make out with someone. I was crazy. I shouldn't have been I shouldn't have been jealous. That didn't actually happen.
Wow.
So, yeah.
We're crazy.
We are crazy.
We're crazy, and the more red flags, the better.
I know, clearly.
We're just red flag collectors.
Yeah, so if you got those red flags, just bring them over here. Keep collecting them. Although I did get rid of that collection, so, we're starting fresh. No more red flags, green flags only. Films like this are important because I think as someone who has been in situations like that, it's just like comforting to know that like there's someone else writing about it and that people are talking about it and that there's other people who have shared the experience because people just don't talk about it.
Right.
So
I agree.
as a reminder, I'm Amanda.
I'm Alexa.
And if you want to hear more from us about our life stories, don't forget to follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're also on YouTube. And in terms of social media, we have Instagram,
Twitter,
TikTok, and you can find us at Tatas and Tea Pod.
Listen up, fans, we're Tatas and Tea, where we turn our traumas into comedy. But we're here for some fun to retell our life tales, from hilarious dates to epic fails. You want some advice, just ask away, but we'll share our opinions either way. No problems too big, no questions too small. With Tatas and Tea, we'll cover it